Welcome to the Thriving Practice Podcast. My name is Miranda Dorta, and I'm the manager of operations and PR here at Tracy Cherpeski International and the Thriving Practice community. Today, we're turning the mic around and putting Tracy in the interview seat. These unscripted conversations reveal our natural dynamic as Tracy responds to questions she hasn't heard before. You'll experience our genuine connection, learn about our approach to client partnerships, and see why our work energizes us. You'd think that once you survive a hard season of practice ownership, you've earned smooth waters ahead. Then a new level of growth arrives, and suddenly you're right back in the burning and the murk and wondering what went wrong. In a recent episode on the podcast, Tracy named something most practice owners miss. The process isn't a straight line, it cycles, and this snack episode will sink into what it really means. Let's get into it. How are you, Tracy?
Oh, very good. Thank you. How about you?
Yes, doing good. So I took some inspiration from a recent solo episode. We'll link it below in the show notes if you haven't listened to it before, but it was a really good one. So I kind of wanted to unpack it a little bit more. Um, so Tracy, you said the three stages aren't always linear. Why does that catch so many practice owners off guard? And if we need a kind of a clarification of what the three stages are, please do so.
So I think we're sold this idea that success just is you work hard and you take a step and you take another step and you take another step and you're going to keep going. The reality is it's, sometimes it's two steps forward, one step back. This is going to start sounding like line dancing. It might be a little shift to the right, just to go into a musical. But, we'll see these memes, of like what people think success is, and it's this straight line between, start and finish. And then the reality is like this crazy, it looks like a ball of yarn that's become undone kind of thing. And I think that's the reality, right? Of like, there is going to be what we call the messy middle, and it's a very common term in the coaching world. And the messy middle, it's kind of like a transition, right? A lot of times transitions just feel brutal and they feel
Mhm.
like they're never going to end. I always think of childbirth when I use the word transition because I had, a sort of a standard birth, and I remember the transition and thinking, I'm not going to make it out of this alive. I don't know. I don't know how, I don't know what you got to do, but this is not working, right? And I have
Mhm.
felt that in business. Our clients have been in that place in business. If you have a wound that's healing, right before it's almost done, it itches and burns like mad. That's really often the indicator that you're really close to like that tipping point where you're about to like in a good way go over the edge, like you're going to get past and through that. So I think, that's the surprise is they're like, but I've been working hard and I followed the steps, and I just success just is not paint by number. It's just not. That's
Mhm.
yeah.
Definitely. And what's the difference between cycling back through a hard season and actually going backwards?
If you're cycling back through a hard season, I would say, you are perhaps there's some unfinished business, right? Like in mindset terms, you think about like Pima Children, who tells us that, if we keep repeating patterns, then it's just simply telling us that there's something that we need to learn. And so one of the things that I advise a client is to ask the question, what am I learning? What am I learning right
Hmm.
now? Because it actually slows us down from the frenetic, holy expletive, I'm again, we're doing this again, right? And that's not really, it might feel like regression. It might feel like you're taking a step back. But if you reframe that to like, okay, what am I learning right now? What am I meant to be taking from this? That's, not a regression.
Hmm.
You may on paper see some dips in your revenues and things like that. And certainly if you see a trend, that's something to address, but if it's just a moment in time where it feels pretty difficult, it's really, something needs to be addressed. And
Hmm.
usually it's a small adjustment. It's not always a big thing.
Hmm. And why does a new chapter of growth, a promotion of the practice, maybe a bigger team, sometimes restart the whole sequence?
Well, if you haven't handled your stuff, if there are lingering issues, even if they seem small, if you haven't documented your processes, if you don't have a reliable, repeatable, structure to how you do things, whatever you expand in your practice will also expand your problems. And so
Mm,
it's, and this is no fault. Also, any type of growth is going to shine a light on a process that maybe worked before and now doesn't work. Like we had a client who, she's graduated client now, but a large neuropsych practice and started out with just her. And then over 20 odd years that she grew the practice, it became a 2 location practice with 10 or 11 doctors, 10 techs, five admin, I believe, and a practice manager. She was like, yeah, I mean, we used to be able to just kind of say, like, we're all adults here. So you're going to get your work done, when I added a small team. And now, ooh, boy, howdy, does that not work? And, I was like, the thing is like people need to understand what are the rules, what's the structure, what are the expectations. That's sort of human nature in employed work, right? What do you need from me? We're all adults is good, but that's not actual guidance, right?
hmm
So for her in this particular practice, it was an opportunity for her to pause, her and the practice manager. This was really a tandem thing as they had this growth, to pause, to review, what's working, what's not working, where are the challenges coming up, what are the patterns that we're seeing. Um, and my advice to the practice owner was to cut down clinical time and only do the complex cases that require a board certified psychologist.
hmm
So, like some structure. So it was kind of a restart, but it wasn't a complete overhaul. It was really more like a pause and then addressing, where the issues really were.
hmm
Yeah.
And how does knowing the cycle might repeat change how an owner responds to the second or maybe third time around?
Well, if you're kind of knowing that it's likely going to cycle through, you're maybe less inclined to resist it
Mm,
because what we
it's true.
resist persists,
Persist.
right?
Yeah.
And also if you think about I think about resistance, like physically resisting something, how much you have to tense up your body. You know,
hmm
I was recently in Martha's Vineyard. Oh, pretty place if you haven't been. Got in the water. It was a very choppy day. And I had not yet turned sideways to let the waves just kind of wash over me. And I got clobbered. And I was trying to resist the waves instead of like going with it, turning sideways,
hmm
allowing them to kind of move me, or just getting in and floating on them because that's what I didn't want to get my hair wet. Y'all, I landed
Yeah.
my face first in the sand. So my hair got wet. So I was so sore the next day. I was sore, not even realizing it was from 20 minutes in the water, kind of sore, and like
hmm
muscles I hadn't felt for a while. So that's to me was like this moment of like, man, if you resist, it actually hurts. It actually
Yeah.
hurts. And guess what? It didn't stop me from falling and getting slammed. I mean, I had a mouthful of sand. I had sand inside my swimsuit. Everything was terrible.
Yeah.
If I had just floated and gone with it, I tell you it would have been a much better experience. It was still fun, but you know,
Totally.
yeah. So I do
Yeah.
think, if you're more inclined to expect that there are cycles, you don't have to expect that as exact thing's going to come up again. But if you understand that things go in cycles, there is ebb and flow, you're going to have a
hmm
plan. I'm not telling you to like be totally laid back and peace out. This is not what I'm saying. But if you know more or less what to expect, you're much less likely to be thrown off guard. Another analogy
hmm
is like taking a self-defense class, right? I'm not encouraging you to go walking in terrible, scary places, but like you hold yourself differently, you're prepared for it, it's less likely even to
hmm
happen. So if you're prepared
Right.
for it, it might still happen, but it might just be a blip on the radar screen to you because you're expecting it.
That's good. And if the cycle never fully ends, how do you make peace with that instead of fully bracing against it?
I think, in healthcare, the pace of change is so rapid that I think understanding that I'm going to be talking about both sides of my face a little bit, but I'll explain it. It is what it is. Like this is kind of how it goes. This is not the same as allowing yourself to be ground into the earth by your work. But there is this thing that like this change is happening quickly. It's one of the most heavily regulated industries in the US for sure, and in other parts of the world, probably close behind. Um, And so that's going to change rapidly. And then the
Hmm.
technology is changing and adapting faster than we can even imagine that it could. And
Right.
so, you know, understanding that and accepting that is kind of like surrender. I think I've talked about surrender before, either in an episode
Hmm.
or maybe in an email. I can't remember. But, I never really, I understood like intellectually what surrender means, right? But when you actually embody it, where you're like, okay, I understand that the nature of this industry is rapid change. And a lot of the change we don't like, right?
Hmm.
Some of it is to satisfy somebody that has nothing to do with actually providing care. Um, so I'm not going to throw my hands up in the air and be like, well, that's not going to work for me. But I'm going to understand that that is going to happen. And so I'm going to be prepared to be agile, to be flexible, to potentially, hire the right professionals who can keep track of a lot of that stuff so that I just need to be briefed on it and my team needs to be briefed on it. And then we get back to doing what we do best. So it's a little bit
Hmm.
like compartmentalizing, a lot of surrender and acceptance. I think, this really touches on some of the mindset work that we do with clients. Like, let's lay out
Hmm.
what's real here. The reality is, change. The reality is rapid change. The reality is, things that are really hard to keep up with that could derail an entire practice.
Hmm.
And so the next question, the next layer to that is like, okay, it's kind of like it is what it is. Now what? Or so what, which is like it impacts us, it can impact the practice. And then now what? And so how are we going to prepare for that? What are we going to do? What systems or people or support or tools, whatever it is, are we going to put in place so that when the inevitable happens, we're able to adjust to it? So it doesn't have to be a
Definitely.
pivot. So you're not trying to run, with pants around ankles kind of situation where you can, you get to have a belt.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. And if you're interested in hearing more, go back and listen to the episode 260 of the Thriving Practice podcast, where Tracy dives a little deeper. If you're interested in scheduling a consultation with Tracy, please visit practicesuccess.co. And if you want to learn more about our community, visit practicesuccess.co/community. Have a great weekend.